fail. One of the very basic needs of life is shelter, and the overall goal of human settlement and development is to ensure that all organized human activities within our cities, towns and villages are undertaken in a planned and specially determined manner in order to bring about equity, efficient management, and enhanced socio-economic development. Urban development in Ghana has brought about explosion in population sizes, leading to the development of slums, perennial flats, both vehicular and human congestions, as well as attendant effects on the environment and the beautification of our towns and cities. So the question is, what really went wrong? Did we really have a plan for the development of Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, and other regional and district capitals? Are we not embarrassed when we travel abroad and return home with fond memories of the very organized towns and cities we stay in back there? Why are residential areas gradually becoming commercialized? I mean, there's not a single street in Accra where you do not find shops springing up over the walls of people's homes. And whose duty is it really to ensure that our lands are properly demarcated and earmarked for specific projects? Well, who plans our towns and cities? That's a major question that we want to address tonight on PM Express. Now, in a Chronicle report of today, the Norwegian government has provided the Ghana government with a sum of $5.6 million as seed capital for the execution of a pilot phase of the National Spatial Plan project, which is geared toward fighting slums in the country. It will commence in the Western region and later be rolled out in the other parts of the country, the other 9 regions. So should we be smiling about these developments when really the problem is attitudinal, and perhaps the key institutions that are mandated to enforce the planning and beautification of our cities are shirking their responsibilities? Tonight, I have with me in the studio for this discussion Frank Taki, who to my immediate left is the former president of the Ghana Institute of Planners. He's the current chief executive officer of the consortium. The consortium is a group of planners and civil engineers. So he'll talk to us about planning our cities. And then I have next to him Mohammed Al-Hassan, who is a senior town and country planning a senior planning officer at the Town and Country Planning Department of the Ministry of Environment, Science and Innovation. We hear that the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology has a new name now. So the Town and Country Planning Division is under the Ministry of Environment, Science and Innovation. Gentlemen, we're grateful to have you on PM Express.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let me start with you, Mohammed. What is going wrong? I mean, why aren't we getting efficient planning of our towns and cities without hassle? Why? Why is it becoming so difficult?
All right, thank you. Let me emphasize again and again that the issue really is not about we not having plans. We do have
beautiful plans.
Virtually the entire geographical area of AMA is covered by some form of a plan or the other. The challenge relates more to the inadequate investments we have to get these plans reflected on the ground. And so
I see that you're being cautious with the choice of your words. Inadequate investment into making sure that these plans reflect whose responsibility is it to get this funding, really? Well, this investment, is it not government's?
Yes, and the local governments, basically. So what I want to say is a plan is nothing, but at the same time, it's everything. If you have a plan and it's not implemented, then people don't see that plan. And so at the least, we would expect that if you have a plan of an area, the roads, the access ways are cleared, at least to give some form of guidance to developers so that nobody really has an excuse to say, I didn't know that this was an access way in the list. There are several other infrastructural investment packages that would have to be rolled out to commence the implementation of a plan. Like I said, the roads, the drains, the utility lines, and so on and so forth usually would come. But let me say that one may ask that, well, we have ECG, we have the Department of Urban Roads, we have the Ghana Urban Water Company, and so on and so forth. So, and they have their budgets too. So why don't they do that? Then we come to the question of coordination, which is collapsed over the years. You find institutions doing their best, but working in silos. And so you don't find the composite effect expected of all of these efforts. So that really is a big issue. And day by day, you find indications of collaboration and coordination collapsing and wearing further apart.
So if I ask you, what is the state of town planning in Ghana in general, are you able to say it?
Yes. It's not too good a thing, but the institutions are doing their best. We have to be aware that you need capacity, some minimum capacity, to get a city running optimally. And so if you take the AMA area, for example, and you have some 4 people in an office with the responsibility to manage the plans of Accra or plan and manage Accra.
You think that would be a big joke?
Then we are joking.
Big joke.
You know, they find themselves locked up in the routine development control activities, just assessing people's permits, reviewing and presenting them to the committees for consideration. They have no time to do anything else.
No time to inspect, no time to enforce.
No, the people are not there, so who does that? So it's a challenge we think should be looked at as a national project and not a matter of town planning is performing or not. You know, it should be seen as a national challenge that requires total effort.
I'll come back to you later for us to explore maybe the possible ways for which, as a country, we should be pursuing this national project that you propose. But let me come to you, Mr. Taki.
Yeah.
You have rich experience in planning of cities and towns. Is it a big deal? Do we really need, as individuals, state institutions, and as citizens, to be concerned with planning for any reason, town planning in particular?
Well, I mean, it is one of the few equalizers in society. I mean, that basically means it affects everybody. Everybody lives in either a village, a hamlet, a town, a city. So it affects everybody. The city's functioning is not something that is a preserve of a few or others. You cannot isolate yourself and say, I have so much money, so I don't really care. It will catch up with you somehow. Either your immediate environment, going through the traffic, the environmental hazards of somebody next to you. So either way, it's an equalizer in society. It affects everybody, regardless of your religion, sex, age, political affiliation, whatever it is. It is a standard. It's an equalizer. So yes, I mean, it is.
Let me cite specific parts of Accra, places like Laboni, places like Dansoman, Tema, New Achimota, places like Mile 7, Petroleum, and maybe I could add a few old places like South Labadi Estates and a few other places. What makes those areas well planned than areas like maybe Niboy Town, Tabora, parts of Abeka La Paz, and Akwetema, and even Teshi Mami, the Teshi Township itself, and Sukura? I mean, what makes these planned areas different from the ones I've mentioned? What went wrong?
I think you're using the word planned in this context to mean layout, which is a very simplified version of, there's much more to it. it's a whole.
So this is a layman's understanding
yes,
of what planning really is.
The roads
so
are
roads are
and
straight,
so
everything. So that's
but
layout.
The bigger picture is more important.
And what is the bigger picture?
The bigger picture of seeing Accra sprawling beyond boundaries that are now uncontrollable. You know, it's a bigger picture. The bigger picture of having the city, the outlying areas like let's say Domi, Bawe, Kwabinya is much closer. Sagbogba, all of these emerging outlying areas, including Spintex Road, which were virtually virgin areas, becoming the sprawling suburban residential zones. They are becoming huge dormitories of high density concentration. Now,
can you break this down so people will
break
understand?
down the sense that is dormitories, the fact that human activity or living in an environment mustn't be only residential. You need to have health facilities, educational facilities, commercial, industrial, where you work. Now you notice what's happening in Accra now. It's a mono rail. Everybody just converges in the morning towards the center, and then everybody flows back. If you were living at a place like Kokobiti, Botiano area there that you're familiar with, and you had a major health crisis, your first point of call is start looking towards Korle Bu. Why should that be? I mean, look at people traveling in the mornings, leaving areas like maybe Malam, Bawe areas, Santa Maria, going towards Accra Central. I'd be amazed that people are going to buy recurrent things like going to the market at Agbubroshi or something. Why should that be? So all the outlying areas which should have responded to a mix of uses have all fallen back into dormitories, as I call them. Even Tema depends a lot on Accra.
Yeah.
These are the bigger pictures that you are looking at. Now, that puts a lot of stress on the infrastructure supply. It increases your travel time and the energy consumption. And then you look at the public transport system that is not there to respond to these things. So you have lots of taxis chasing this same direction, going towards Accra, coming back with people, because we don't have this huge passenger carrying capacities to take lots of people in and bring them out. Workplaces are so limited, they are all converged towards a certain
Central
center.
Business District.
And even the Central Business District itself, I mean, Mohammed will tell you, it's not professionally what you call, it's a central area, as I always say. The Central Business District, we don't have such conflicts of an onion market sharing beds with the Bank of Ghana. I mean, it never happens anywhere. I mean, Central Business District is a certain core function of complementarity for activities that have the highest end. But that is the same place where you have the highest concentration of squatters in Ghana. They are there in the central area. The yam market is there. The onion market is there. Everything that is not supposed to be there is there. So it doesn't even function as a central business district. So the bigger picture is more frightening than looking at what seemingly looks like the layouts that you find in the Labonia and so on. Now, if you go to these areas that seem to you to be so-called well-planned, you can see the distortions and lack of basic amenities and social investments and non-residential needs. Therefore, kiosks will start responding to lack of retail space and so on. So the bigger picture is still quite frightening.
So there's nothing really wrong, from what I hear you say. There's nothing really wrong when an area suddenly begins to turn itself into commercial activity. For example, the new Achimota area, the Kingsby Road, for example, is virtually becoming a hub of shops.
Yeah, but what it just tells you is that it's a felt need. If you don't provide for it, there will be a response. Okay, so if we had planned our retail subsector very well, as Accra was growing, I mean, the last time I saw any planned, let's say, market or something next to the Mokola, then there was London Market, then there's Sraha, came Kaneshi Market. Nothing happened thereafter. So that's all we have. People will respond to it one way or the other. There's no major planned commercial, but the need for retail space is a felt need and it's a human need. It will happen. Either you provide for it or it will provide for itself. Now the response is what you are seeing as a, chaos and all this kiosk and, but it's a genuine need of people because the economy itself is based on trading.
Yeah.
Okay, but you have to provide commensurate space at the appropriate place for it to happen. Otherwise, people will do it by their own understanding. So when I find any empty space around my territory, and I know people need to buy shoes and so on,
you pitch your camp there
that's how I go, yeah.
and sell shoes.
Right.
So where did this problem start from, really? Still with you, Mr. Taki. Where in your imagination do you think that it started
I think
from?
basically we anytime we get into this kind of discussion, I've noticed that all the media, you limit yourself to the technical issues, like Mohammed said. Preparing a plan and all the technical issues is not the issue. I mean, even with the limited staff they have, I think we can still do a lot. I mean, there's a whole plan prepared for Accra Central area, funded by UNDP into millions of dollars. There was a plan prepared for Accra, the Greater Accra Master Plan of 1991, funded by UNDP. What happened? So sometimes you people let the politicians go free. The planning and politics are intertwined. I do not, and neither does Mohammed, have the capacity or I mean, he cannot on his own government say, okay, I'm going to implement this plan, I prepared it. You need political leadership. All the areas you are mentioning, Dubai is a classic example. How did Dubai transform? Go to Dubai, ask them to show you Dubai 15 years ago, and you'll probably be seeing Katamanto staring at you. So ask what happened. An individual, political, visionary leadership, this is where we want to go, and we're going. It takes that. Now, that has not happened. Okay? It hasn't happened. So we always pretend it's the town planning department, or people call me on radio. Well, no, it takes more than that. Let's get a picture, bigger picture clear. If there is political will, a lot can happen. To call any of us, any Ghanaian well-trained architect, engineer, town planner, to say, okay, let's transform, for example, Osu Street into a competitive international space
where people can
That's not a
feel
problem.
comfortable.
But who is going to implement it? You start seeing a politician telling you that, oh, let's be careful about the social implication. People saying at the roadside they might not vote for us, kind of thing. So there's a political question. We run away from it, but that is, to me, the fundamental core issue. Once we get that right, everything else will fall into place. These are the macro issues that we should be dealing with.
Mohammed, you agree with this assertion that its lack of political commitment is throwing our ability as a nation to effectively plan our towns and cities, really?
Yes, largely.
And so, I mean, you work, I know that you work in an institution where you largely respond to policy directions, etc. Tell me, over the past years that you've worked there, what major improvements you've seen which you think are good indications that we can make things happen?
Well, once the need for, or once, let me go back this way. He talked about planning and politics. When you plan, you have to get it in a manner that is appealing to the politicians, or package it in a way that makes him or her feel he has something to gain. And then,
Really?
And yes.
Must it be the case?
A politician wouldn't just come implementing plans, constructing roads, constructing markets for the sake of it. They would do that, but in addition, they would want to know what their share is. And he spoke about votes and all the other benefits we know typically a politician would want. And so let me concede that what we also haven't done very well is to try to package these political goods, I mean these plans,
To make it appealing to the politician.
in a way that satisfy the technical need, and then at the same time look appealing to the politicians. That we are still locked up in the past where the state was heavily involved, had full control. All of these areas you mentioned in Accra are areas the state had almost absolute control as far as the land ownership issues and the focusing of resources to put in all the investment that were required to get a neighborhood functioning well. And so that is no more. We having the state pulling back, trying to do quality control, facilitate things, leave things to the private sector, which market is not perfect as far as implementation of these projects are concerned. And so really, I cannot tell if I should suggest that the state should again come in forcefully as it used to do. Obviously, that cannot go on because of resource constraints. And so what I think is that the human resource capacity challenges that I spoke about at the minimum should be put in place so that we get the private sector, we sit back, do the quality control, and get the private sector do the work.
And
can
this be effective?
Yes. Yes, it will be effective because if you ask Mohammed to go and do the research, collect data, prepare a plan, come back and sit and do the management, implement, give people permits, that's too much work. He doesn't have all the knowledge. We are generalists. We are not very focused on some issues. But if we outsource that to a private firm or person, and we have the requisite capacity, then we will take up the project management issues such as writing the terms of reference and the contracts and so on and so forth. And then allowing these firms that have all the expertise in spatial planning, engineering, surveying, to do the work well. And then when they hand it back over to us, then we present it to the politician or to the local government for approval. That is the arrangement now. Then having approved that, we would expect that they will look at this plan and implement projects and not just implement projects that are appealing to them at any point in time. That is the challenge. You have plans sometimes and then they are not followed. It's a huge challenge.
Do you sometimes feel frustrated with your inability as a professional to implement anything?
Yes, it's worrying because you get people telling you doing nothing. You are not. What are you doing? You work with town planning. What are you doing?
Yeah, tell me, what are you doing?
Yes, we are working.
What do you do? Tell me what you do at town planning.
Yes, we are working.
How do you work?
Typically,
so on a typical day when you come to work,
I
what do you do?
Go to office. I have a letter on my desk.
To somebody who wants a permit? You chase it,
well,
or what?
As a person in the head office, my work typically will be you have a letter to respond to, either to present a report to whichever ministry, to attend a meeting to discuss an issue, or to discuss a project management issue related to an ongoing project somewhere. But for somebody in the local assembly, like the AMA office, our office in the AMA, the person goes and he has a huge pile of files comprising applications, development applications submitted that he has to look at and then find time to go to site, do inspection, come back to write his report, present it to the committee for consideration, and so on and so forth. And like I mentioned earlier, that is the cycle our officers find themselves in now, just locked up doing these routine things.
It's a very ineffective cycle.
Yes, yes, and yes.
You agree with that?
Yes, yes. What can 4 or 5 people do?
Mr.
Taki, it must be frustrating for you as well. Who
I still think I still think it's a political issue, but he cannot be as firm on it as. But I mean, when I look back at, I look back at the Accra Master Plan in the 1990 era, then I look at the Accra Central Area Plan, and I can say with authority that if the steps have been taken to implement, Sodom and Gomorrah would not have been there by now, okay? Because as far back as 23 years ago, there was 2,000 population. I remember we did a census there. The yam market was very small. Areas that we had reserved in Accra to relocate the Tudu Lorry Station, because Tudu Lorry Station is basically servicing the is that the northern corner towards Aflao, Nigeria, Ho, and so on. So we had found space at Shiashi. Shiashi was just a virgin territory. Just moving there, you would have solved the problem. We had space on Spintex Road. We were looking at Tema and Accra being twin cities, and therefore Spintex Road where we now have the place called the Trade Fair. Tesco was meant to be a huge market, so that we hold back the drift into Mokola and 31st Bank Market, and then around Malam Junction, and that transport terminal to take care of vehicles going towards Western. All of these places were available, were unencumbered, were free. Nothing happened. Today, Accra has overrun. I mean, the next space you will probably get to think of a terminal, either you're going to break down buildings at Shiashin, that will cost you a lot, and that's where the politician will find it very difficult for the huge political cost, you know. So I still go back to the basics. See, because we have failed to do anything and the thing has so exploded, there's a huge political cost and a huge social cost. For me, I think the way out is, I think it's a myth. But politicians have grown to believe that if you do the right thing, people will not vote for you. And I beg to differ. I mean, the classic case study where I think all our politicians should go and understudy is go to Nigeria, the Lagos governor, the one who just left. I mean, he took the bulls by the horns.
It took very bold.
Yes, but at the end of the day, people were now begging to come back, even for him to run as for presidency. Human beings, as you see around, all the squatters and the kiosk owners, those on the pavement, they know what is good. Every evening you see them watching TV, they see a brochure, they say, wow, they know it, they appreciate it. Okay? So why would they not? We have not even tested it, but there's this myth: if you do it, people won't vote for me. So nothing happens, and then that's where it runs down and down and down and down and down.
Let's look at land allocation. I mean, in the mix, we're talking about responsibility of government and planners and policymakers. What about land allocation itself? If there were strict rules in allocation of land, wouldn't it have been good and effective in aiding planning generally?
When you get to land management, there are two issues. Don't confuse the two. Land ownership is one aspect. The use to which you put the land is another aspect. You do not have absolute powers over the land that you own. There's a limit to what you can do with the land. You can own the land, nobody can challenge it. So for example, this building here, if Mohammed and Co decide that they're going to do a major redevelopment scheme in Kokomemele because of the congestion created by Joy FM, you're parking on the street and so on. So there's going to be a major to redevelop this area. And then the plan that comes out, which is publicized, and there's stakeholder consultation, everybody agrees that, look, Joy FM is a nuisance.
And we must go.
So you must go.
Then
this area becomes a children's playground so that all the adjoining areas, communities
can come and play.
You can still own the land, but you have to subject yourself to the use for the public good. You know, so that is how powerful these guys are, and the Act 462 that backs them, gives authority to them.
So it means that land allocation really doesn't become a problem until the point at which you're going to start developing. So for example, if I get a piece of land and I want to turn it into a school, I can't just do that until I get clearance from you that this area is suitable for a school. What considerations do you put in to ensure that you give me or you deny me that license to build that school?
We basically look at compatibility. We look at whether there are conflicts with the adjoining land uses. So if it's a school and it's next to a hotel, especially if it's a senior high school, for example, there may be a problem. If it's at the crossroads where you think the school children run a high risk of crossing and getting hit and so on and so forth, that may
also
be a
becomes
problem.
A consideration.
If we find that to be an emission hub where there's a holdup of a lot of vehicles and a lot of emission has to take place, and you have carbon monoxide inhalation. I mean, that may be a concern, and several others. And so where you feel strongly that you still want to have that project undertaken, then you would have to perhaps hire a consultant to justify technically or professionally and suggest mitigation measures. So that means that you may still have that project going on there, but you may have to spend a little bit more to fix some problems that we envisaged, you know, when you did your proposal. So that I want to emphasize, because sometimes people just lay blames and they say, well, this was supposed to be a residential area and they are allowing this, and these things take place.
I mean, you could get a school sharing a boundary with a house. I mean, a school which is, let's say, has a population of over 1,000 and shares a boundary with a house. I mean,
see, most of the things that he's talking about have got to do with the complaint he made about the capacity. Some of the things that he's, for example, is proactivity. In this circumstance, for example, if they were well endowed with resources in terms of human capacity and everything, I mean, they would proactively, for example, be surveying the city. I mean, he would probably go with a report and say, look, we need to look at this Oxford, this Oxford Street
how it's
seriously.
spreading up. It's
Okay,
becoming...
so let's intervene. So before you even, in the next year where you probably intend to convert your mother's house into a pub, they would have come up with a plan, publicized. Everybody knows that, look, this area is a green area. At least let's have some breathing space and so on. Yeah, proactively they would have done. That's what happens in well-organized systems. But in their case, of course, I mean, clearly they are chasing development. Then people don't have the patience to wait. He's got a deal. He's got this house. There's an investor interested in it. He's going to try and make an effort. There's going to be a conflict. There'll be stop work and there'll be this and that. He will find his way through before he realizes it's all over.
The whole structure is over.
It's over. Yeah. So the proactivity is not happening. They don't have the capacity to proactively plan and intervene and so on.
Well, we're chatting tonight about who plans our towns and cities. And you've heard the various arguments about problems with planning in our country. We need more investments and we need better coordination between utility providers and service providers to make sure that the problem of lack of coordination is eliminated. So if you live in an area and then suddenly a school is springing up by your house, don't be scared yet. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do to mitigate the problem. Now, you can send us your comments and text 1760, post them on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/Joy News on TV. If you are active on Twitter, you can send us a tweet on Joy News at Joy News on TV as well. My name is Stephen Enti. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to PM Express. We're still talking planning of our major cities and towns. My name is Stephen Enti, and you can join our show by text 1760. Post your Facebook comments on our Facebook walls, facebook.com/Joy News on TV, and send us a tweet at Joy News on TV as well, and we'll gladly read them. So let me come back to the studio, and I'll start with you, Mohammed. Let's talk about Ghana's housing deficit. I'm sure that you might be aware of the increasing demand on families and individuals to get residential properties for themselves because of the rising cost of living and rents in major cities. Is this affecting effective planning in any way?
Yes, very much. This is a structural issue that if we don't get solved, would only get the planners embarking on a wild goose chase forever and ever, because the need for low-income housing, for example, if it's not taken care of by the state, then you would find these people, for example, housing themselves anywhere. And so largely, the character of a neighborhood is a reflection to a large extent also the income levels. And so if you go and demarcate the place nicely and you can only get people who can afford kiosks to place on them, then you find kiosks there. And if they can't find proper sanitary services and facilities, they will do everything around. If they can't afford to pay for a drain to be constructed or do one themselves well, then you would find on surface runoffs of wastewater and so on and so forth. So yes, it's a huge issue that we have to deal with. Whether we like it or not, the magnetic character of Accra has become very well established, attracting everyone else here.
Into the center.
And so, one, in the long term, we have to embark on initiatives that will retain people in their various places, get the various employment centers. That takes some time, not too long a time if some resources are made available. But in the meantime, once we continue to get the people coming in, then we have to have social housing schemes that gives the opportunity to a Kayaye to rent a decent place.
Or own a house.
Or own a house over time. You know, start with rentals, graduate to owning a house. Now, if you look at the housing market and the projections we do, we're talking of only the high end of the income group most of the time. They talk of affordable housing.
And the affordable housing are
affordable to the middle class. We're talking affordability to the middle class and so on. So that is a big issue. And so until it is looked at, we would continue to find these people occupying all the marginal lands, the railway reservations, the road reservations, the marshy lands, and so on and so forth.
So this comes back to what Mr. Taki is saying, that we need a strong political commitment
very strong
to make things happen.
Very strong one.
Why don't we have it? It beats my mind, because if we've been consistently voting representatives into office to take decisions for us, and we still have shoddy planning in our towns and cities. Up to today, we don't have effective and proper naming of our streets. If you have to locate a place in Accra, God knows how you are going to do it. If you gave a house number, you might spend 6 months trying to find a place.
Yes,
Why
the question
this?
is when you are inviting people to discuss this issue, you don't invite the politicians. I would love to have the minister sit.
But we need to first
diagnose.
like find out what the problem is. Then
See,
we can...
the housing issue, for example, I look at it again, the bigger picture. I mean, the urbanization syndrome, but beyond that is the fact that the economy needs structural transformation massively. If these low-income
How so? If you say structural transformation, how so?
I mean, we stop trading and start manufacturing and industrial processes. So if you go to a place like China, most of these marginal workers you are seeing living in kiosks, they are in industrial estates supporting a factory that is producing on 3 shifts, day shift, night shift, and so on. If you stopped at in Sawam, where you have this Blue Skies factory, and you saw the quantum of these low-income workers who come by trotro to come and do their shifts and go back, that's huge employment hub. Now, around that area, for example, you could be looking at an estate to house these, to support the industrial production. But when it's all about trading and trading and trading, the economy is so fragile itself to start with. The second issue has got to do with that comes to we the professionals somehow, where we've really trained people at KNUST and so on, and looking at the higher end of architecture and town planning and engineering, where to get really that magical theme of a low-income house. The research institutions have done their bit about what are the options, but then you find the whole distortion in the trade expose, where it's cheaper for you to use imported items than even to attempt to put up a... Look at the Pozzolana factory that we're talking about, using Pozzolana as a cement additive and so on to sustain it. So you need a certain complementarity of activities to really move into this magic world of a low-income house. I mean, you cannot have a low-cost house when you don't have the ingredients of low-cost housing. The building materials must be in place, the technology and the design and so on, that will make it really truly a low-income house. But when you're going to use the same materials that you are using for your house and Mohammed's house,
and your house as well,
mine, you know, that house will not fit into a car use. So we've got all those structural elements still very, very, very there. They are very structural issues that really we haven't tackled at all. Unfortunately, we've gone way, way back. I worked at the Building and Road Research Institute way back in the 70s or so, and I can assure you that Ghana was way, way ahead the chase towards low-cost building materials. I mean, way, way back, and now it's more like a dead issue. I mean, so it's gone down, 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 and it's like nobody cares about it. Imported, everything's got to be cement, aluminum, you know. So we have not really done enough, even in areas like in the northern region where you should be thinking of, materials that are earth-based because of their climate. They've all been forced to go into glass aluminum technology because of the importation, and that only strengthens the Chinese economy. It doesn't strengthen your economy. The building industry. The good thing about the housing, if you take housing seriously and then you generate the parameters very wide, it's got this huge multiplier effect. Once you have a construction industry locally based, you run down into building materials, then the production based, and it becomes a system where you generate off-farm employment. So people start manufacturing bricks, for example, when they finish with their farming until harvest time. So they have a dual economy. So they don't really drift to the urban centers. They farm during the farming season. Off farming season, they go into maybe clay bricks and so on in production. And we have sufficient options around, for low cost. We started a lot, and then people started pedaling back. Now it's like it doesn't really exist.
It's very sad. Now let's talk about the Chronicle report of today that the government is receiving support from the Norwegian government to the tune of 6.5 million to execute the pilot phase of a national spatial plan project geared towards fighting slums, and this will be starting from Sekondi Takoradi. I understand that you have a role to play in the replanning of Takoradi. Why so? I mean, on what basis? What is the focus of this replan? Is it around the oil find, or you're looking beyond that?
Well, my project, you're talking about two different things, but the Norwegian one had to do with I believe the Western Region Spatial Plan.
Yeah. You will be the one to talk about that,
but
right?
I did the Sekondi Takoradi City Plan, and then also a sub-regional spatial plan covering the 6 coastal districts where the oil find is, starting from Shama district all the way to Jomoro, and this was sponsored by Tolo.
So your work is integrated, will be integrated
yes,
into
it is.
At the end?
Yes.
I mean, the results from your work.
Exactly. In fact, they've already been integrated, because I really took a bit of strength from the Western Regional Spatial Plan, because you cannot plan Sekondi Takoradi in isolation of the Western region. So as the capital city of the Western region, I took strength from the overall Western Regional Spatial Plan. But my focus was on Sekondi Takoradi City Plan. It's more like an urban renewal process to ensure that the oil economy has a spatial reflection. I mean, go to Takoradi right now. Before I started the work, the impression that was created was that there's no land in Takoradi, it's all gone, and so people started panicking and then looking for lands at the outskirts to worsen the sprawl. Now Takoradi overlaps into Shama, overlaps into Agona. But when I entered, you could see that the Takoradi is like a huge bread. It looks so huge. But when you punch in so many holes, when the city is dead, it's so empty. There's so much space.
You're describing it with such passionate words that if somebody has grown up in Takoradi, won't agree with you at all.
Well, I had a lot of public forum. I used these same words, and they all agree with me. Met the chiefs, the fishermen, the market women, the tractor drivers. So they all know it's a reality. I mean, you enter Takoradi. Sekondi, for example, is a twin city to Takoradi. It's literally dead. Nothing happens in Sekondi. It's not their fault, because the harbor used to be to sustain the economy and the timber industry. All of these things actually collapsed. So it's an economic malaise that is especially reflected. But the point is that without a city plan that seeks to renew, you might be tempted to think that there's not enough land, and people start sprawling to the outskirts. So basically, it's got to do with when you understand that you can renew land, you don't have to expand, because the density of development in Sekondi Takoradi is so low. You look around the government, and mind you, Sekondi Takoradi has lots of government acquisitions. So you find government ministries and bungalows on one point, Beach Road, for example, the highest value areas in Takoradi, or the Beach Road, 1.5 acres, and have one bungalow, and there's somebody in it. There are squatters in the bungalow. So it's hollow. So the plan attempts to first of all consolidate growth within the core area without, so that we halt the sprawl, and then also try to balance the infrastructure, because the harbor and the oil find has suddenly generated so much traffic, the roads cannot contain the different kind of traffic that is coming in. Now these are huge trucks and so on. So you need to look at all of that, which roads have to be dual carriages and so on. You have to look at the traffic composition. The Takoradi is just like any of the other cities, full of taxis, and then they get the roads so congested. Which routes can be used for public transportation, for the public, so that you can have buses and so on. And then you limit the congestion on the roads in those areas. Look at downtown, market circle, the popular market circle is all
choked, totally choked now.
And it's antiquated. It's all old, dilapidated buildings, not really worth anything. So how to get the political will to relocate the market, the outskirts.
So these are major suggestions that you put in your reports. Walk us through a few more of the things that you suggested. So your major suggestion is to halt the urban sprawl of Takoradi. Because you felt that the existing space can be reworked to make it beneficial for the plan.
Much more space. I mean, at the end of the day, if you came in and you're looking for space for a hotel, you shouldn't find yourself going to the outskirts of Takoradi, whereas you can find so much space at the beachfront itself, because it's a matter of renewing the investments there. Now, the government bungalows that occupy 1.5 acres and so on, we've done a pilot study here through town planning. Cantonments, for example, we pulled down one of the old bungalows at Cantonments, and in place we built 10 bungalows, and ministers live there. So,
interesting.
Yes, so clearly that the wastage of space, and there's the same principle that we are applying in Takoradi. You go secondary, you find dead buildings. And when I say dead, there's absolutely nobody in there. Then you find government office itself or government business itself being a problem. Because you want to do government business in secondary Takoradi, within secondary itself, there are about 4 different locations for government business. There's the regional minister's outfit, Lands Commission is somewhere there, PWD. Then you come to Takoradi, cross all over. Then you have AESL, you have highway. So you do crisscrossing in the city. Now, if you had all of this as government business in 1 or 2 buildings in one location, so our overall strategy was to look at secondary as the administrative function and then Takoradi as a commercial function. Define it. Now, let as much as possible all administrative functions like government business retained in secondary, and then the commercial hub be Takoradi. Then there's complementarity, and then you reduce this crisscrossing. These are some of the issues.
So are you hoping? Are you anticipating that this plan will see the light of day in your time? I told you
from day one, plan preparation is stage 1. Then there's plan implementation. I can only go as far as plan preparation. I'm hoping that there will be political will to implement the plan.
Well, this is PM Express. I have a couple of messages that have come in, and Alukos from Tamale, he's always the first to send us a message. He says that, hi, Steve, attitudinal change is the only way forward, though we need to appreciate the fact that education towards this common goal will be the only panacea antidote to the country's planning system. And Al-Hassan, you may be right for Accra. What about the districts like Garu that are not planned? And then thanks to Muhammad Al-Hassan for the explanation. The people of Nkwanta South in the Volta region are proud of you. Keep on with your good work. This is from Karim Abila in Nkwanta South in the Volta region. And then Felix from Koforidua, you say that our system of land ownership has a great effect on planning. Private owners think the land is for them, so they decide on how to use it anyway, anyhow. That's your opinion. Thanks very much, Felix from Koforidua. And then this one says, my name is VI from Ho. My question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in a situation where your residential areas have turned into industrial areas, posing various health hazards to us, the people living in these communities? Let me bring that to you, Mohammed. You saw the message from the person who is saying that he's very proud of you. That's a compliment to you. And now this is the problem we've been talking about. If you have an area which is residential suddenly transforming itself into a commercial hub, what do you do about it first as planners? Or you think this is something that the residents should be taking up themselves?
No. In most cases, this is unacceptable because, especially with the industrial bit, where you find highly incompatible uses encroaching, other use areas, especially residential areas, and posing all these nuisances to them. I go back to the initial issue I raised about capacity. When you find these few people locked up somewhere trying to do an assignment they can't even complete, then you don't find them, you don't expect them to come out to do anything else. I am told, but I don't know for a fact, that smaller cities like Amsterdam and so on and so have a minimum of, is it 2,000? Okay, complement of staff.
Yeah, 2,000.
Yeah, running the city. So how do you compare 2,000 to 5? So that is the difficulty. So you have a complement of engineers, not just town planners as we find here, engineers, planners, surveyors, architects, working as a team in an outfit. And I would say that about 20 years ago or so, the capacity here in the Accra office was better than it is today. We had at least a complement of 15 or so of this group of.
What do you think the problem is? Low remuneration to attract the necessary staff to work, or it's just government not having the money to pay for more?
Yes, and the blanket application of some policies to all sectors. If there's a free zone, for example, additional employment to the public sector to avoid increasing the wage bill, that may be a valid reason for the issues there are. But we have to look at certain key sectors or departments or institutions and service them as such, allow them to go on. You don't box all of them together. So, but this is the situation we find ourselves in. People keep retiring, and you find very few people coming in. And as I speak, you find most of our human settlement planners who are turned out from KNUST going into banks, and some turning journalists and so on and so forth. So it's worrying. Ideally, we would have liked to find all of these people coming in direct, as we used to have in those days. That's like medical doctors and teachers. If you study town planning, you come to work.
And work. I mean, if you make more money. Let's quickly wrap up with the issue of flood in the capital. What should be the solution, Mohammed? I mean, is it a planning problem? Flooding. I mean, anytime there rains, several parts of the city, and not only in Accra, but several other parts, the country floods.
No, not necessarily. Partly. Let me say that if you have the drains and they are choked, then it's not a planning issue. You find refuse being dumped in there. It's not a planning issue. If you find people occupying the reservations and getting swept away by
that's not a planning issue also.
Then it's a urban management issue, development control issue, and then the political will comes in there. The planning issue comes in where there is evidence that a particular drainage path has been planned for development of one kind or the other. Then that is a planning challenge. But let me come back to what Mr. Taki indicated earlier, that we have a grand plan that is still very much alive, called the Greater Accra Metropolitan Area Strategic Plan. They worked on some years back, 20 years ago, that made a lot of fantastic proposals. For example, on drainage, it talked about from the hills, Equapim Hills, immediately a few kilometers down, we should have smaller ponds to retain these waters to be used for farming. Then when you find the overspill that comes into the city, then you would have found it having a lesser impact in the city.
But all these have not happened.
Yeah, these have not happened. And it's not the planner who goes to.
There's a political will. Mr. Taki, your closing words on our discussion.
I think even the little portion which still is planning in flooding, if the city had not sprawled, see, when you have a fast runoff, so areas around, let's say, Waja, where you start seeing the hills and so on, they all had vegetative cover. So coming to Accra now, you see they've all been scraped off. People are building there. What you do is that you actually increase the runoff, okay? So as we build more of the highways, you increase the runoff. Then you see all this vegetative cover. Then it goes all the way back and then Accra has sprawled beyond Ashongman. What do you call that? Is it Ashongman? Now going to the eastern region, and you scrape all of that cover. Right, Brekusu. Now, when you've done that, now the runoff becomes very fast. So if you look at the pattern, 15, 20 years ago, the retention time without the intervention that we talked about, nature itself holds back because of the vegetative cover. Now, it takes just about 20, 30 minutes and so it's you.
So moving forward, Mr. Taki, your closing words, what should be the whole country's attitude towards resolving the planning challenges we face?
I would love to see, first of all, any new government coming in and putting this on the agenda. We should stop this idea of running the development purely on socio-economic issues, then leaving out the physical realm or spatial realm. That must be reflected in the government strategy, and that must also be reflected in the budget. It's not enough to talk that we want to see our cities transformed. At the end of the day, the bottom line is, when I read the budget, I want to see that, okay, secondary Takoradi, for example, okay, this plan, this is the total cost, okay, this has been allocated for roads and so on. That is how things will turn around. So the plans must be prepared and they must be supported with the financial commitment.
Well, plans must be prepared and supported by financial commitment. Thanks very much, Frank Taki. He's the former president of the Ghana Institute of Planners and is the CEO of the consortium. The consortium is a private civil engineers and planners company. And then Mohammed Al-Hassan is senior planning officer at the Town and Country Planning Division. My name is Stephen Nancy. Thanks to you for making time to watch PM Express, and thanks for all your comments which came by text and through our Facebook and Twitter pages. Join us again tomorrow, Wednesday, for Corporate Wednesday. Good night.